Hello everybody, my name is Randall Barnes. I'm a mass communications major here at Fort Valley State University. And we're here with Dr. McCamey. He's the author of a guide for teaching adolescent sexual abusers in residential settings, The Ties That Bind Us, and also The Pathology of Racism. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great. So I want you to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm Dr. McCamey. I've been here at Fort Valley for quite some time. I came here in 2008 as a social work faculty. Prior to coming here in 2008, I taught for 5 years at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. While here in my early years, I became the chair of the Behavior Science Department, and I held that position for 5 years. And then I moved over to the graduate mental health counseling program, where I've been the past 3 years. And in the mental health counseling program, I am a tenured associate professor of mental health counseling, and I teach in the graduate program. So I'm very delighted to be here, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you.
We'd love to thank you for being here and doing so much for our campus and also just for Black people in general. Now, in regards to Fort Valley, there's been so much going on with the inauguration of the president. We had homecoming, and then we had this classic win.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Fort Valley now? Like, this semester's coming to an end. How do you feel about it?
I feel very, very great about Fort Valley State University. As I mentioned, when I came here from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, and many of my educators from high school and from elementary school were actually graduates from Fort Valley State University. And so it gave me a sense of pride to be able to come back to a historically Black college and become a professor at the very institution in which some of my teachers actually got their education from. At the University of North Carolina, I taught mostly students who were from middle to upper class income, as well as mostly white students. At Fort Valley State University, I've been able to work with students across various socioeconomic status, but mostly African American youth, and that has been a sense of pride for me. In terms of my transformation over the course of the 7 or 8 years, I think I'm in my 9th year, time is flying so quickly, it's been a wonderful experience for me. I've gained tremendous I would say academic and scholarly publication experience. Since I've been here, I've published and or presented at national or international conferences on 30 or more occasions. As you see here, I have 3 books that I'm very proud of, and these books are very timely. I've developed relationships with faculty, co-workers here, administrators over the course of this time that has been invaluable. And so this experience has been quite enjoyable for me.
Okay, so I want to ask about the students, because you said that you're dealing with students that go here, they're from different socioeconomic lines, and you also taught at the University of North Carolina. So is there a difference as far as the mindset of the students or how the students generally operate down there?
Well, I think when you look at cultures, you always have to be mindful that cultures impact behavior. At Fort Valley State University, I've seen some of the brightest students, minority students, other diverse races. I've seen some extremely talented students at Fort Valley State University, and I also had that experience at the University of North Carolina. When you begin to look at culture and how culture impacts the academic process, you always have to look at your own culture. And so looking at my own culture and some of the students I've worked with at both institutions, I see what culture has a profound impact. But for the most part, it's been positive. The historical presence here at Fort Valley State University, the tradition, not only with athletics but through academics, I see students are really progressing and moving forward in academia. So I'm very proud of what I see here at Fort Valley State University.
We always want our professors to be proud.
Right.
So that's definitely something that makes me happy, and I'm pretty sure that will make your students happy as well, because you are a nighttime professor. You said you have a class at 6 o'clock.
Yes, yes.
At night.
Right.
So how is it being a nighttime professor? Is it better?
Well, I wouldn't say whether it's better or not. My first 4 or 5 years here at Fort Valley State University, I taught mostly day classes. But I had the opportunity to teach in both programs, the undergraduate and the graduate programs. When I was chair here for over that period of 5 years, I had a unique opportunity to teach both in the undergraduate and graduate programs, where I taught the clinical mental health counseling programs in the graduate department, and then I was able to teach in the undergrad for social work, psychology, and sociology. So I had, to some degree, the best of both worlds. Well, 2 days I may have taught during the mornings, and one night I would teach during the week. In terms of being better, or being better than the other, that's a difficult question. I really enjoy teaching graduate students, and I enjoy teaching undergraduate students as well. But when you have graduate students who are ready for a different level of learning, it becomes extremely rewarding to see students get involved in research, publications, and so that for me has been a very rewarding experience to work with those students in the graduate program.
You're also an author.
Yes.
So I want you to really quickly tell me about your 3 books. First, the Guide for Treating Adolescent Sexual Abusers in Residential Settings. That is a great title. I like that title.
Well, thank you. Well, this book came about, and I'm very proud of this particular book, largely because I spent the past 25 years working with adolescent sexual abusers. And in this text, although fairly short, over I think about 160 pages, I highlight and outline my experience through research and some of the publications, article publications, but also from real life cases that I've worked with over the course of the past 25 years. Adolescent sexual abuse is a very difficult population to work with. And in my experience, many people don't quite understand how to work with this particular population. The stigma associated with sex offending behavior is also something that creates a lot of phobia and fear in working and assisting this population. So as I look back on my career, and I'm moving in a different direction now in terms of working with these various populations, I wanted to be able to leave something behind with this population to help other people to be able to be successful for working with adolescent sexual abusers. So in that text, we talk about residential treatment, 45 days at a time. We look at programs that are 6 months, 12 months, and up to 24 months that work with some of the most difficult sexual abusers, in the sexual abuser population. Yeah.
And one thing I like about your books, especially how we had this set up right now, is that it's like stairs.
Yeah.
Stairs for the Black community. So we started with sexual abuse. Now the ties that bind us, recapturing the African American community from the inside out. That's another great title.
Well, thank you.
So how did this book come about? Because this seems to be very specific from the first book.
Well, as a social worker, I have a BSW, a MSW, and a PhD in social welfare. And the vast majority of my life in academia, and as a student as well, is that we look at social welfare in a way that we're out to help and enhance the quality of life of others. One of the things that has come about over the course of the past 10 years, it has been a mind shift for me. With this particular text, the ties that binds us, and recapturing the African American community from inside out, I thought it was very important. I thought it was extremely critical that we get some information out about what can we do within our own community to enhance the quality of life of African American people. For so many years, we've looked on the outside for other people to bring in the answer, to bring in, some ideas to help us deal with some of the social ills or the plight of the African American community, and we have failed to some degree to recapture some of the things that we're known to be great for, and in this text we talk a lot about community and the importance of looking back at what community really mean to African American people from the time we were in Africa to the time we arrived here in America. And so we need to go back to some of the fundamental foundations of community, which means that we're all here and we're all interconnected. And so that text talks a lot about the interconnection between our community and how we need to begin to support one another in a very different way.
This is the main event of we're at the top of the stairs right now, the Pathology of Racism. This title, when I heard about this book, I had to get it. I gotta read it.
Right. Because
the Pathology of Racism. So could you explain the word pathology? What does that mean?
Well, in terms of pathology, you're looking at, in terms of racism, you're looking at pathology of racism as a issue that no one has ever looked at in terms of mental health. And over the course of time, we know about slavery, we know about the transformation of the civil rights movement, but no one looked at this social phenomenon as a mental health issue. And if you look back over history, this text, although it's succinct, I think it's 130 pages at max, but I kept it pretty brief so we can get to the point to look at racism as a mental health issue. Many people, some on the left, some on the right, there will be critics that would say, how in the world can you look at racism as a pathological issue? I think we beyond that point now. We have no other option but to look at, why do people hate so much? And we're looking at hate as it transcends America. And I think we can see that. We look at the relationships that we have throughout our communities with race relations. We're still, dealing with the issues of discrimination, oppression, and hate of people simply because of the color of their skin.
The other thing that Randall actually pointed out is how they all kind of interconnect in this way. But I think the last two, the ties that bond us and the pathology of racism, and how the community are coming together as a community to combat some of the challenges that we've encountered as a race is important. And my question is that there's been this discussion about there being a form of PTSD from slavery. Have you heard or looked into any of that, or is that kind of connected in any kind of way?
Well, it's in terms of the pathology of racism, we did not talk about that in that text, but there's certainly some aftermath of racism in terms of mental distress. If you look back at the history of slavery, and I talk about it, the impact of slavery in this text on African American people. I think it's important to understand that it was torture and it was terrorism for African American people during the course of slavery, not only during slavery but post-slavery. And so when you begin to look at the torture, the church bombings, the hangings, that was a form of stress that was undoubtedly post-traumatic. And so if you begin to look at it in that terms, absolutely, we received a considerable amount of stress as a result of racism and even after racism. If you look at, where we are now in America, it's extremely stressful for African American people to just drive a car. And so if you look at the stress associated with feeling like you may be profiled by a police officer, obviously, it can be extremely stressful. For me, as an African American male, I travel from Fort Valley State University to LaGrange, Georgia, 3 to 4 times a week. I try my level best not to speed, and I've gotten stopped several times. And the officers almost always ask, "Why are you so nervous?" I'm an African American male. And if you look at the media, if you look at what has happened in America, and just in the course of the past 3 to 5 years, and this is not a new phenomenon, we are able to capture the police shootings now on video and cell phones. But it's been happening for years. And so to now be able to see it on social media, it really brings it to reality for me. So if I'm stopped for a speeding ticket or stopped for changing lanes and the blue light's on me, that's a considerable amount of stress for me. And so I had this conversation with one of my friends who happened to not be African American. And he said, well, why would you be nervous? You haven't done anything. And so for me is you don't understand, the struggle that African American people have to deal with simply from being African American. And so I have a whole chapter here about white privilege and the pathology of racism. White privilege, really, you don't have to worry about the issues that African American people have to worry about when it comes to discrimination, oppression, or being profiled. Because white people don't get profiled. African American people get profiled because of the media images. I have a chapter here in this book that talks about how the media has done this devastating thing to the African American man.
Pathology of racism?
The pathology, it's a whole chapter in there. And, I don't blame anyone for those particular issues, but when you begin to have those kind of conversations and dialogues with other people, you quickly understand that they have no clue what African American people have to deal with, simply because of their race. And then you look at an African American male, but if you turn the television on at 6 p.m. at night, you're going to see a male that's in handcuffs. You're going to see a male that, the mug shot. And when you get this image over and over again about this is what a black man represents in America, guess what all America began to believe? That all black men are criminals, that all black men are violent, that all black men are pathology, that has pathology. And so when you have this whole piece that day in and day out, it constructs an image that you are dangerous, then we have a problem. And the last piece I want to just touch on in this particular text, that it crosses over between the pathology of racism and also the ties that bind us, is that there's an economic component in this book that we have to talk about. African American people has to begin to move in a direction that we can create our own economics as a community.
Absolutely.
And so until we get to that point, we are just moving along and we're going to get the same old results. I believe that economically we are disenfranchised, and until we have economic power, and when I use power in this text, I don't mean power in control and domination over any race. That's not what I mean when I say power. What I mean when I say power, I mean we need to be able to not only sit at the table, we need to be able to set the table. We've been able to sit at the table for many years. What has gotten us? We need to set the table. If we set the table because we have banks, grocery stores, we own these particular things, we have economic power. Not because we want to dominate anyone, but because now we own the credit unions, the banks. We can give money. People will begin to listen. One of the unfortunate things in America, when you look at racism, you also have to look at economics. And sometimes they blur between one another. And I have this heated debate with some of my colleagues. Sometimes they come to me and say, this is just racism. And then I give it back to them and I say, this is just economics.
Yep.
Classism. And so you have to understand that they travel along the same highways. And you're going to run into being confused about which one is which. Because a lot of times the people that have the most money are the ones that get the things in life that they want. And just so happen that most of the time it's people that don't look like me. Okay? That have the access, to the funds, to the banks, to the property. And so what happens in the end? They get the goods. Okay, so again, I want to close by saying we have to look at the economic components, and within the African American community, we certainly have to work together cooperatively. We need to have some kind of cooperative economics where we working in partnership with one another to be able to help these businesses survive. Okay.
Wonderful, just impactful and powerful. Your words are incredibly powerful. I know your class loves you.
Well, thank you. I would hope so. we have some heated debates in my class.
Oh, I definitely can tell.
Okay.
I would love to be in your class. You might get me in your class one day.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you for having me.